The marriage covenant is a very important concept in marriage. To understand that when you come together, you are really coming into a covenant. It's not a contract like when I'm buying a car from you and we sign, or buying a piece of land from you and we sign a document. That's a contract. A covenant is a little different. Let's look at Malachi chapter 2. Verse 10 says, "Do we not all have one Father? Did not one God create us? Why do we profane the covenant of our ancestors by being unfaithful to one another?" You see, the Bible is saying in Malachi 2:10 that when people who are in a marriage break the relationship, we are actually profaning a covenant. Verse 11 says, "Judah has been unfaithful. A detestable thing has been committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. Judah has desecrated the sanctuary the Lord loves by marrying women who worship a foreign god. As for the man who does this, whoever he may be, may the Lord remove him from the tents of Jacob, even though he brings an offering to the Lord Almighty." Then verse 13 says, "Another thing you do, you flood the Lord's altar with tears. You weep and wail because he no longer looks with favor on your offerings or accepts them with pleasure from your hands. You ask, why? It is because the Lord is witness." Witness of what? Between you and the wife of your youth. You have been unfaithful to her, though she is your partner, the wife of your marriage covenant. Hear it again. Marriage is a covenant. And when you have a problem with your wife, you have a problem with God, even if you go doing a big sacrifice. When you dump your husband like a contract, he didn't do this or the other, please understand that God is involved in it. So verse 15 says, has not the one God made you? You belong to him. That's what the Bible is reminding you. In body and spirit, you belong to him. And what does the one God seek? Godly offspring. So be on your guard and do not be unfaithful to the wife of your youth. Why is this covenant important? Because it produces the future generation of godly worshippers. That when you break marriage, you actually are risking the future of the church, the future of worship. So you're being told, so be on your guard. How do you become unfaithful? Stay with the wife you married when you are young, the wife of your youth. Verse 16 says, "The man who hates and divorces his wife, says the Lord, the God of Israel, does violence to the one he should protect." So you have a responsibility to protect your spouse. You are now having violence, says the Lord. So be on your guard and do not be unfaithful. Verse 17 says, "You have wearied the Lord with your words." How have we wearied him? You ask. By saying, "All who do evil are good in the eyes of the Lord, and he is pleased with him." Or where is the God of justice? When you make what God calls important not matter, when you make it, divorce is like anything you can do anytime you want, not understanding that in the contract between two people with the covenant, this kind of covenant, God is part of it. He's saying, "I'm a witness." That you can't just break that relationship and hope that God is not going to be involved. My prayer is that you will understand the importance of this very critical relationship. So, agreed, a covenant is a relationship. Just like a contract is a relationship, that will be something important that we need to be clear about. But you need to understand that what you have with your wife is not a contract like any other. So do not play around with it. Of course, I'm also talking to young people that you should not enter into marriage as a joke. So it is something critical. You know, a covenant is usually formal, solemn, and binding. And the whole relationship of mankind depends upon the sanctity of covenant. And I think it will be important that we understand that. You know, Merriam-Webster says a covenant is a promise included in a contract or agreement. So you have an agreement to promote it to a covenant. It's a promise. And the definition of a restrictive covenant agreement legally implies a party's consent to be restricted by the contract. The term covenant means come together in Latin and conveys a willingness to do just that, to come together. In the Catholic Church, a covenant is a declaration which you draw with some other people, and then everybody signs. And here, you are clear about the duties of the people, members of that covenant. And their duty is towards God and to have fellow believers. So in a covenant, this kind of covenant we are having, yes, you are dealing with the man, but you are dealing with God. Maybe somebody else says it's a fraternal agreement, freely endorsed, that establishes what are, according to the Holy Scriptures, the responsibilities of each party. And that will be important. All this helps you to start thinking how important marriage actually is when you start seeing it as a critical thing. Another dictionary quoted by the Bible Study Tools says the word covenant frequently is heard in conversation. It's quite commonly used in legal and social and religious and theological contexts. You know, the term covenant, like we saw, comes from its Latin root. And we saw that it talks about coming together. So, in a covenant, we presuppose two or more parties who come together to make a contract, agreement, or promise stipulations and privileges for that each party will bear the responsibilities. You know, it is understood in biblical terms as something that is solemn. Of course, the politicians could also use it and talk about that treaty. But it could also be in social issues, which is a long-term commitment. And so that could only be referring to marriage. You know, in the Old Testament, the word covenant appears, somebody says, 280 times as berit. And in the New Testament, it appears 3 times. So it's quite a common word in the Bible. So, but the Old Testament, when you have the covenant, you even ate together. Look at Genesis 26 or Genesis 1. But there's also in this covenant of the Old Testament some shedding of blood, the cutting of an animal into 2 halves and people walking in between. A covenant, therefore, refers to 2 or more parties bound together by a solemn agreement. And I think that's what the Bible means when it uses the word covenant. So, but another word they use is testament. It's a testament. That's why we have the New Testament or the Old Testament. And the Greek word basically means to order or dispose or to oneself or another. You're making commitment to another. And in a testament, the parties making the agreement may not be necessarily equal. But in all these concepts you are looking at, when the covenant refer to covenant, it's something solemn. It's a binding thing, something you are not going to break tomorrow. It's a bond between parties. Abimelech and Isaac decided to settle their land dispute, and they made a binding agreement, a covenant, to live in peace with one another, with an oath. They even had an oath. Joshua and Gibeonites also made a covenant that made it difficult for, when Joshua discovered the lie, to kill them. They had to live in peace. You see, clearly Joshua had been tricked. But covenant is so serious, he had to leave them in Israel unharmed. That's how serious a covenant can be. Solomon and Hiram made binding agreement to live and work in peace together. They never fought. 1 Kings chapter 5. A friendship bond was sealed by oath between David and Jonathan. We also see that in 1 Samuel 20. So that's the kind of thing that you are talking about. That's the elevation of the issue of that you are having a covenant between a husband and a wife. What you have is a covenant. The bond here is sealed by both parties, making a vow or an oath about what each person is committing to do and to be to one another. And so you need to understand that's what you are doing when you talk about the covenant. So, do you understand in a relationship of marriage is that's why I'm saying young people need to be told clearly that when you enter into marriage, you're entering into a covenant, not just an agreement with an escape clause. In this kind of thing, there is no escape clause. You enter in, but you may not go out. Like we have seen, it comprises the principle of integrity that guarantees that the relationship will be preserved. So you cannot, since it's the covenant, it's not something you enter in a hurry. It's something you think through, That's why you can see in the Old Testament, you're having to cut an animal. An animal has to die. It's a solemn thing. It therefore means it's not something you do in a hurry. And that's why it is important that you don't just meet today and tomorrow you say you are married. It is important to follow a process, and some of our traditions, whether European or African, are critical, which make it that you have to clear. You can't marry a girl before you have cleared it with the father. The father can't just make a decision without involving his clan. And here we are not talking about dowry, just talking about the process that the two families are coming together. So before we actually have the covenant start, you involve people. You don't shock them with surprise. Or because you are creating a covenant, some way of entering, and it's not easy to come out. And I think that will be something that you understand. So even as you enter into marriage, that's what you need to have at the back of your mind. That there needs to be a process that helps you to wake up. Maybe along the process you might say, hey, do I really want to live for life with this man or with this woman? What about if this woman had an accident and she couldn't walk? Will I still be married to her, or will I dump her and get another woman? How do I enter into life covenant, and yet I don't know what will happen into my future? How do I enter into this relationship, and yet there are so many uncertainties? So it's an act of faith. And once you are in, you have to stay. So the principle of integrity is a critical thing that you cannot really be talking about that you're in a covenant without integrity. And when you talk about integrity, it's wholeness. What you say is what you do. What you say in one occasion is what you say in another occasion. That the commitment you are making before the wedding, it's a commitment you go with. It doesn't change. It's not situational ethics. It doesn't change with the circumstances. You stay with it. That's why the important thing is to think about it before. Number 2, to ask about it. What are the issues? What are the challenges? Why did so and so divorce? Look at all those issues in advance before you say I do. Before you commit yourself to the woman. Look at it in advance. But once you commit, then stay, irrespective of the cost of staying there. But I think that's one of the things when we refer to marriage as a covenant, that's what we are trying to actually talk about. That you have made a covenant for life. It's something you are going to stay on the long term. And you have made it with open eyes because you are clear. So what have we said so far? That a covenant is two people come together in the presence of God, and God is part of that commitment. Number 2, we said it's not simply a contract, because a contract has an escape clause. In this covenant, there's no escape clause. You are staying. And that's what God expects of marriage. That's what Malachi is telling us. He does not want you to get involved in abandoning the wife of your youth. In other words, there's no time you will be too old to stay together. So this is a relationship with God as a witness. Number 3, I have said it will be important because you can see how solemn this thing is. It will be important that you first of all understand the risk you are taking. Number 2, talk to people who are involved in it, or even people who have failed in it. Get to know information about it, and on that basis, you can actually make up your decision. Discuss all these issues with the person you are going to be together about the possibilities, the various possibilities, and say, whatever comes, I will stay with you. Now, don't just talk sweet nothings. Find out the information and what the risks are involved. Then look at the various scenarios and say, yes, even under those scenarios, I want to live with you for life. That is what I'm thinking will be critical. So integrity is the issue. You think through and make a commitment, understanding you will stick with it. Well, that's what integrity is all about. Men of integrity are men of their word. They keep their promise. And that's what we are talking about when we talk about a marriage as a covenant. And that will be important. You see, not keeping your covenant, not staying in your covenant, tells us something about your character. Remember, you are not suggesting that you are not going to have challenges. We have talked about them already. But you have a person of character sticks with it because his name is his bond. He stands for his name. So he continues in a relationship despite the fact that he is not really too happy in it. He finds a way of making good out of it. And you can bring joy. Once you make a commitment in something, then you're not looking for a way of escape. You're looking for how you can make something good out of a bad situation. And that's really what we are talking about when we talk about, so you are not just a man of integrity, you are a person of character. And staying in marriage helps us to see character, say, wow, that man is a man of character. His wife has had such difficulties and he has stuck with her. His wife has been rude, but he has stuck with her. His wife has had this problem and he's stuck with her. That's a man of character. And that's really what we are talking about when we talk about marriage being a covenant. You are going to be a man of character who will stay with someone, not just for the good days, but all the days. And not all days, most people will admit, are good days. Some days will be challenging, some days will be difficult. But if you enter into a covenant, you understand clearly every situation, as bad as it is, you look for a way of dealing with it, managing it, not escaping it. That's what you do. And over time, you learn how to manage the situation and you start enjoying the living despite all the challenges. But it all begins with commitment, integrity, and character, which will be important to live with. I think it also involves faithfulness. That is, faithfulness is ability to be trusted, to keep promises, to be reliable, to be loyal. What do you mean by loyal? Loyal means if you are loyal to your friend, means you will defend them, you will protect them, you will never participate in a discussion on that is spoiling their reputation, because you're always on their side. You are loyal. That guy is so loyal. And what you're talking about, if you really are in a covenant, you will be loyal to your spouse. You will defend them. Obviously, if there's something you have done wrong, quietly between the two of you, you tell her off and say, that was wrong. But when you go to the public, you stick with your spouse. That's really what you're talking about, that if you're in this covenant, you are going to be somebody who is loyal, somebody who is reliable. Your wife should never sleep thinking that you intend to divorce her. Your wife should not even feel threatened that there's a woman pursuing you because she knows she's going to end up nowhere, because she knows you are a man of your word. You stick with her. It doesn't matter what the other woman is offering, because you are loyal. You are somebody who is reliable, and I think that will be important. Your husband should not fear that because the guy pursuing you is richer than him, and he seems to have had many challenges of late, that there is a possibility that you could drop him for the richer guy or the more handsome guy. No? It will be important that you understand clearly that as long as you stick with him, then you will be the person who is loyal. I think that's what the book of Malachi is encouraging you to be, faithful with the wife of your youth. And that will be something that you should look at and think about. So, what are you saying? That if you really have this character and integrity, then you are going to be faithful, you are going to be promise-keeping, you are going to be reliable, you are going to be loyal. You know, this idea of this covenant means you jealously protect the object of your love. Jealously protect the object of your love. And that will be seen in a covenant relationship. And I told you marriage is a covenant, jealously protecting the object of your love. And I think that means once you enter into this covenant, you feel your life exists to fulfill the other person. You think in advance, what can I do that will make them more comfortable? What can I do that will enrich the relationship? What can I do in order to make our life together happier? That's really what we are talking about if you really have accepted to be in this covenant. And you know very well that even if the other party is not doing their part, you is a party of three. Two of you are okay. You are the husband. God is with you. Your wife may be difficult, but you know very well your God is able to deal with her himself. So you do not revenge. You do not act on the basis of what she is acting. You continue loving her despite her many weaknesses, her difficulties. She's a difficult person, but you love her. That's really what we are talking about. This covenant that we are talking about. So you will jealously protect the person because you love them and you desire their best. To love someone is to desire the best of them, to desire them to be in a better place, to desire them to have no problem, to desire them not to have pain, and act. You are not just sympathetic, you are empathetic. You put yourself in the shoes of the covenant partner and want to do the very best for them. You know, the wedding is a sign of the marriage covenant starting. In a covenant, you don't just jump into it. Are you in it or out of it? You are not sure. No. Come, we stay. It's not the way to begin a covenant marriage. It has to be a proper wedding. I don't mean the tea, the cakes, the whatnot. Those are additional. It is the existence of witnesses, the existence of a man of God, and the existence of legal processes that help to start the marriage. So it's a real covenant. You don't just jump in it. You think through, and you make it a clear thing, so that you say yes openly before witnesses, and that's what we call a wedding. If you're in a covenant. So this covenant brings people together, both physically, spiritually, and socially. And that's really what my marriage covenant is going to involve. So you are entering into this relationship physically. So that's why you will sleep together, you will get children. Socially, you are proud, you are going to be proud to stay with this person. And that's why you are starting the covenant openly with people participating as witnesses. So that's socially. And part of spiritually. This is going to become your prayer partner. Somebody you spend the rest of your life praying together and seeking God together with. That's what we mean by marriage is a covenant. And we need to ask ourselves, is that the way your marriage is? Is that the way you are living your life? If your children were asked, do they feel you are in a covenant? How do they know that? By what you do to defend their mother, by the fact that you have assured, they are assured that it doesn't matter what the mother does or does not do, she will never be divorced. There's a commitment. They don't live under the fear that one of these days they will come to find you've gone separate ways. They know if they trust you, they know you are in a covenant that will last. And your children also know that you respect the other person, you are happy with them, even you are also forgiving them of their failures. Then we can talk about you are in a marriage covenant that's going to bring joy to the children and to all that are watching. So, marriage is not a contract. Marriage is a covenant. That's why you can't go in and out as you like, because God is a witness. And we have read in Malachi chapter 2, He wants you to stay in it all the days of your life. In fact, the way He put it is very graphic. Stay with the wife of your youth. That means you are 90 years. and you are still staying together, both of you in your 90s, because you are in a covenant, and God will be the one helping you.